the latest dose of Bipolar Recorder. This podcast may cause dizziness and blurred vision. Enjoy.
Welcome back to the one, the only Bipolar Recorder podcast. My name is Hunter Keegan. I'm the host and producer of this independent mental health outreach initiative. Bipolar Recorder is now officially 4 years old. We celebrated our 4th anniversary earlier this month on October 7th, 2025. In the last 4 years, I've done a lot with Bipolar Recorder, from creating the podcast itself to developing our online Twitter peer support community, releasing a documentary, publishing books, and doing real-world university outreach. Bipolar Recorder is a multifaceted mission to bring awareness to the realities of living with bipolar disorder and other forms of serious mental illness, aka SMI. To help us keep running for at least another 4 years, check out our website, bipolarrecorder.com, where you can find ways to support, either through buying merch, making a donation, or simply telling people about the show. This podcast is ad-free and unsponsored. Listeners like you are our life force. For today, which is the 65th official installment to the podcast series, I interviewed a 37-year-old woman with bipolar disorder who goes by the alias Lump. Since earlier this year, Lump has been delving into the world of peer advocacy and mental health outreach. She's involved with a couple of organizations in Massachusetts that conduct speaking events for mental health professionals, law enforcement, and patients. She also recently became involved with National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, as an In Our Own Voice presenter, which she discusses in this interview as well. Lump's outreach places specific emphasis on recovering from psychotic episodes, which longtime listeners will know is a frequent topic of discussion on this show. We start the interview by discussing Lump's early journey with psychosis, which began when she was in her mid-teens. Lump then discusses healing from psychosis and also mentions several modern resources for individuals who live with psychosis. There's also a strong emphasis throughout this interview on the importance of peer support communities, both online and in the real world. At a couple of points, Lump and I also discuss our love of Theremins, which is a unique musical instrument, which, at least from what Lump and I believe, can have therapeutic properties, so we'll explain more about that too. That's just a quick overview of what's to come. Now here's the audio from Lump's Bipolar Recorder interview. Today, I am joined by Miss Lump, a mental health advocate from the greater Boston, Massachusetts area. She is 37 years old, living with bipolar type 1 and some other conditions. And she agreed to come on the show this evening to talk with us a little bit about the peer support work that she does, which has an emphasis on psychosis and recovering from psychosis, as well as some other cool topics of interest. So, Lump, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Keegan. Thank you for having me.
Oh, please call me Hunter.
Hunter.
Keegan sounds so formal. No, but seriously, it's great to have you here. I came across your account on what we used to call Twitter a few months back, and I remember this correspondence kind of started because I saw that you're a fan of Moog Theremins,
Yeah.
and I saw that and I was like, oh, that's so cool, because that's kind of, for people who don't know, a theremin is, I believe, is the earliest electronic music instrument that was ever created. They've been around since like the 1920s or 1930s. They were invented by a Russian guy, And then Bob Moog of the legendary Moog synthesizer company started building them and selling them in, I believe, New York. And there's this whole history behind it, but they're just like cool, trippy, unique instruments. And so when I saw that you had an interest in that, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I need to get in touch with her because we seem to be kindred spirits. And then, of course, I saw the stuff that you post about mental health and living with mental illness. And when I saw that more recently, you've kind of been adventuring deeper and deeper into peer support work and formal advocacy, I thought it would be a really good time to get you on the show. So, why don't we start with a little bit about your background? Maybe if you wanted to share your story and talk about any of the work that you've been doing this year. Is that too broad, or do you think that would be a good starting point?
That's a good starting point.
Okay.
I think that well, I'm Lump, um, and I have been working in the peer field for. I just really just started in this year in January, um, but going back a bit to kind of like my origin story, so to speak. When I tell the story that I do at the presentations that might I do with my work, which I'll talk about a little later. Um, it goes something like this, where I say, and we present to all kinds of people, including mental health professionals, clinicians, teachers, and police even. And so I try to get a hook on them, and I say, and I talk about psychosis as a question, and it's one we all ask ourselves: what is real? And at best, this question is philosophical, innocent, wondering about the nature of reality and existence. But for someone in crisis, that question can be terrifying and cause someone to spiral. Um, and so when I was 15 years old, I was really lonely, depressed, and fighting with my parents all the time. I wasn't able to do my homework half the time because of what I was dealing with. I wanted help, and I went to see a therapist and then a psychiatrist who put me on a medication right away. Um, I must have had some kind of reaction to it because 3 months later, I started hearing voices and having hallucinations. At first it was profound. I thought I saw the answer to the universe in a cup of green tea, and that words were forming in tree branches, and I saw an alien, and then I started hearing voices. Um, and the voices were actually comforting at first. They
Mm-hmm.
seemed to soothe me. They were telepathic messages from my favorite rock stars. Um, they comforted me though. And I went to my guidance counselor and tried to explain what was going on. I was like, yeah, it's a trick of the light, but my speech just kept getting jumbled and like um, disorienting just to hear me, and well, just try. My words became disjointed, and I kept saying things that only made sense to me. Um, at which point, I was sent to a specialist, and then I was put inpatient.
Mm-hmm.
And um, at that point, I was really scared. I was confused, and when you're questioning reality, being put in a new environment doesn't help, because then now everything's strange and new.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I felt worse, and I didn't feel like the staff really cared about me because it was so severe that they actually put me in isolation for reasons I still don't really know or remember. And that was pretty much one of the more worst weeks of my life, my
Mm-hmm.
young adult life. And um, when I came out of isolation, I got worse. I didn't feel safer. I didn't feel like anyone cared about me or like what I was going through or my fate, because it seemed like people were scared of me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then one day, um, I somebody new became my roommate, my in the psych ward, a patient, but I knew who she was, and she was somebody I knew from Sunday school when I was going to church, and we recognized each other, and she actually like sat with me. She held my hand. She comforted me and reminded me what it was like to be treated as a human being. And those small acts, those small gestures of compassion really grounded me. And I felt safe again, or I started to feel safe. My nervous system started regulating. So I actually started to get better. I thought I would be lost in psychosis forever. But when I received this kind of genuine human support, that's when I started. I remember that was my turning point. Um, and then when I got out of the hospital, it was about 3 months later. Um, they told me, or I saw a psychiatrist who told me and my family that I might never go to college or work or live independently. Um, but that prediction failed to account for my own resilience, but also like there were people who believed in me. My parents pushed me; they didn't want me to be left behind in any way. And I also, I was struggling at the end of high school to graduate. Hardly, um, I was basically given a chance to make a project, and my guidance counselor encouraged me to complete the project because it would be my kind of like last chance to graduate. So I did, and it was to make a song, and I wrote a song and I played it. Played violin and vocals and um, guitar and bass. And it was a song about my brother who also struggles. He has mostly nonverbal autism and lives in a group home. But the song was about him, and it really impressed the teacher, and I was able to graduate. And then when I went to graduation, there was an award ceremony, and my guidance counselor was like, "You got to go to the award ceremony." And I ended up going, and I won a scholarship or award.
Wow.
It was the Resilience Award, and I was
Okay.
like, "Oh, okay." um,
Okay.
so that was a peak moment for me, like recognizing not just my academic progress, but or achievement, but like that I was recovering,
Yeah,
that was being acknowledged. Uh,
absolutely. So your first real interaction with mental health services was when you were just 15 years old, experiencing, I guess it was medication-induced psychosis. And you talked about your experience in the psych hospital, but now these days you're going back to psych hospitals for a much different reason. And can you tell us a little bit about the story that you just told us and how it incorporates into your outreach work that you do
yeah.
for mental health professionals?
So that is the crux of what I present, and I talk about my recovery as well. So there are other things like other paths to healing that I found through like art and music and writing and being creative and meditation, especially. So I also like include the parts of my recovery process to that story. But recently, I was given the opportunity to go to McLean Hospital with my work. Um, and we present a kind of psychoeducation slideshow on psychosis. And we actually went inpatient in when I remember walking through the psych ward and feeling a little weird because I had been hospitalized in that place before, that very
Like
building.
that at that exact hospital,
No,
right?
I don't know if it was the same unit, but it was like that building.
Okay. Yeah.
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 And it was very familiar in a way. So as I was presenting the story that I just told, basically, it it was surreal in a way because I was like, oh wow, I can handle this. I've like really I it was scary that first experience of being in a psych ward, but now I'm able to kind of bring that story with me and let staff know, like the people who work there, and they do respond. They seem they ask me a lot of questions, and some of the questions surprised me, like, how do I tell someone they're in psychosis? And I'm like, I don't think you always should, because it will depend on the person's relationship to their symptoms. I know the first time I was told I was in psychosis was during that first episode. The psychiatrist sat me down and was like, you're having a psychotic episode. And I was so freaked out. I ran, and it made things worse. But it was interesting to me to be asked by professionals, like, what do we say to people to get them to, I'm like, you have to listen to what's going on beneath their delusions, their emotions, and treat the emotions, because fear is like one of the underlying and roots of paranoia and delusions. And when that fear factor is up, like, it's going to be more extreme. At least for me, that's how it was. But when my nervous system was soothed, the calmer I got, the more support I got, the better my outcomes have been. So yeah, it was interesting going to McLean and presenting that story. Um, it's been an empowering form of work for me. Uh, the job that I do, so I'm a peer mentor. I'm not a certified peer specialist yet, but I am working on that. Uh, but and I just got hired by NAMI for in our own voice, which I'm actually doing a training for tomorrow. Um, it's the work I do is a statewide free program. It's like almost, I want to say, a consultation service for people who are either themselves young people. It's aimed at young people, so like first episode or early psychosis. They feel they're experiencing it and they don't know what to do. Um, or family members have someone, a loved one that they're concerned about, or professionals, clinicians and providers might be dealing with a patient and they're not sure what to do.
Hmm.
So we're kind of like there to talk to them. And if there is a young person, I'm available to talk to help them through. And we basically talk about, because it's such a mess navigating the
Yeah.
health system, especially if you're dealing with psychosis. So there's all these programs now, like first episode, clinical high risk, um, and other programs that didn't exist back when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So now we have these programs, and so the place I work for, we basically have the list of all the programs and resources across the state, and we do coaching and consultation. I work with a team of clinicians and a psychotherapist, social worker, psychiatrist. I'm the only peer, which can be a little weird, but it's been an empowering work. It's been empowering work for me overall.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I personally don't think I could go back to a inpatient psychiatric ward and do the type of outreach that I do, you know? Like that's a really intense setting. When I was hospitalized in 2015, I remember because I was hospitalized like in my hometown and I would periodically like drive on the road that leads to the hospital, because it was along a major highway. And I would feel like very on edge and anxious, even just seeing the building from the distance. You know what I mean? So like the fact that you're able to have experienced what you did and then return to the same building, maybe not the exact same rooms or whatever, but that same location and actually um be able to do public speaking, which is something that a lot of people find really difficult under the best circumstances. I just think that that's cool, and you should feel very empowered by it. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you. So it wasn't I think that if I did revisit the actual psych ward that I was in as a teenager, I would have a reaction.
Hmm.
Um, but because the hospitalization that I had at McLean was later in life, I had less feelings about it. But
Yeah.
still, like just being in a psych ward in general and giving a talk, basically, it was still surprising to me that I was able to kind of handle that because psychosis itself is it is a source of trauma. It is in of itself a traumatic event. And I think some people don't understand that we have to heal from the trauma of the psychosis too.
Hmm. Yeah, and there's there's that difference between the more positive, like emotionally positive hallucinations you started having that were more what's the word? I think it's egocentric is
Mm,
the clinical word for it. But then as things start getting more disjointed and scary, it's weird how our relationship with psychotic events when we have them can change like that, you
yeah.
know? I've had a couple of bouts of psychosis over the last 10 to 12 years, and mine had a lot to do with delusions and paranoia. I've occasionally had auditory hallucinations, and I always find auditory hallucinations to be particularly unsettling, just personally. Because I am the sort of person who thinks in terms of words and language, and like I have this constantly running internal monologue and all of that. And so then if I'm hearing things that are not like coming from my brain, or they are coming from my brain, but they're not like coming from who I typically am, it completely throws me off, and it's really disorienting.
For sure. Yeah, I still deal with auditory hallucinations. And in fact, you probably have heard of the Hearing Voices Network?
I have heard of that, but I'm not
Yeah.
super familiar with it.
So I actually go to one of their groups. I think it's international. There's like a whole bunch of groups now. Because voice hearing is one of those misunderstood things that that people have different relationships to it too. And
Yeah.
some people never talk about it because they don't want to be put impatient. But sometimes you can just I live alongside it. I've turned my relationship, I would say credit some of it to meditation, that
Hmm.
I've been able to work with the auditory hallucinations in a way. Um, for example, I've gone on some meditation retreats, like silent retreats, and I do start hearing voices.
Hmm.
Um, I've been lucky enough to be able to go on retreats that, with them knowing my history, I was part of a Buddhist Sangha called Dharma Punks back when I was younger. Oh, do you know that one?
No, but the name is cool.
Yeah, he it was this writer who had written a memoir called Dharma Punks, and people started popping up these like basically recovery Buddhist meetings. And I started going, and it really helped. The meditation, my relationship to my auditory hallucinations, and just the relationship I have to what I've been through in life in general. It was a profoundly, I think the first time I went on a retreat, meditation for like 10 days, silence, was such a profound experience. I was like, I have to keep doing these. I want to get better. It enabled me to feel like I can manage these symptoms a lot better now.
Hmm.
And the voices that I hear now, back then, back when I was a teenager, they were horrifying, absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
But now they're gentle. They are kind.
Hmm.
They're kinder than they have been. They can be a little weird and make me uncomfortable, but I've almost like turned it into a working relationship, like a friendship
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
lot of it.
That's so interesting. I wonder how much that gets explored in traditional therapy, right?
Mm.
Learning to actually tolerate the voices and even integrate them into, I guess, a healthier um, vibe, for lack of a better word. Yeah, no, that's so interesting. So when you have auditory hallucinations, do they sound a particular way? Like when I've had auditory hallucinations, it's usually like weird whispers that are very like broken up. It's like it'll sound almost as though I'm catching the tail end of a sentence, but I like quote unquote know what the sentence before that was, if that makes sense. I know it sounds kind of
Yeah,
weird.
that does kind of make sense. The way I describe it is, you know how like when we see faces in objects or textures, like I think it's called, I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, pareidolia.
Yeah.
It's like that, but for sound. So it's like auditory
Mhm.
pareidolia. It's like sounds that already exist in the environment will turn into a voice. So like it's almost like, I don't know, onomatopoeia or something. Like the sound effects of my environment
Yeah.
creating words. My brain is creating words out of whatever it already exists.
Getting back to the outreach you did at McLean Hospital, what are maybe one or two of the most important takeaways that you hope staff have after listening to your presentations?
Well, for one, recovery is possible because it used to really be believed that people with my condition would not go on to do anything with their lives or live
Mm-hmm.
happy, successful, full lives. A lot has changed since my hospitalization. That was in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while. Um, and I have noticed an improvement in the system overall, a little bit more towards compassion. But what I tell the staff and or whoever I'm talking to, I say, you could be the person that shows someone who's having psychosis, shows them the compassion that they need, the presence that calms them down and helps them reset their nervous system and can change the course of their condition. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's what happened to me. It really helped that someone was there for me and saw me as a human, not just the disorder.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really important to convey. For sure. I was hospitalized in 2015, and you said you had been hospitalized in 2003. In 2015, I wasn't very impressed by the quality of care in the hospital that I was in. And I continue to have very negative perceptions of inpatient psychiatric hospitals. Now that you go back to places like McLean now in 2025, like what are there any key things you've noticed that have changed since like you were hospitalized like 20 years ago, I was hospitalized about 10 years ago, or aside from maybe more of an emphasis on quote unquote compassionate care, like is there
Mm.
anything else that you've noticed seems different from what you went through?
I can only speak to my most recent experiences in inpatient,
Hmm.
which the last time, it's hard to remember, to be honest. It was like 2018, I think, was my
Oh, okay, I see.
last hospitalization. Um, what I noticed was there was, I guess, to try to frame it as not, there does seem to be more understanding, at least around, and I know you said not just compassionate care, but I think I think just the research has improved to a point that now there's more emphasis on the trauma piece.
Okay.
So there's more trauma informed care, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
They're looking now through the lens of trauma at psychosis, and I think that can enable people to view it more, um, I don't know, humanely, and so that people are being treated for, because I believe a lot of psychosis at its root can be from trauma. Not
Hmm.
always, but
Hmm.
like a fair chance that somebody's having an episode has had traumatic events in their life. Um, so treating the trauma is something that I've seen more of, and I don't know if it's just my experiences have changed. Now there's better services. Like they didn't have the when I was a teenager, they didn't have programs in schools. They have like mental health programs now that are in high schools.
Yeah.
Um, and then the first episode programs and the early psychosis, clinical high risk psychosis programs.
Yeah. They didn't have Twitter Spaces either back in the day.
Yeah.
That was honestly such a game changer for me, was kind of cultivating and discovering other mental health peer support communities besides the Bipolar Recorder one on the Twitter and X platform. That has really helped my healing journey.
Mm.
Just having like a an active peer support group to reach out to online and just kind of like compare notes and hear about what each other has gone through over the years, and like what has helped or what hasn't helped. And it's never medical advice or anything, but like I think just the fact that you can find other people who relate to somewhat common experiences is tremendously beneficial.
Yeah, the peer spaces that I've been learning about through my job, honestly, in Massachusetts, there's a lot of peer work going on. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's like Massachusetts has been at least some of the movement behind it has kind of like come out of Massachusetts at least, and this
Yeah.
Western Massachusetts has got it going. They've got like they've got something called a FIA, which is a respite home for
Hmm.
people having mental health crises, non no medication. Um, it's peer led, I believe. So,
Okay.
have you ever heard of Sorteria houses?
I don't know. I'm
They are
not sure.
I believe they're a model of care for people. They're homes, like respite homes for people experiencing psychosis or schizophrenia,
Yeah.
and they were peer led, and I believe, and so that's the kind of model that the Afia House uses. Um, so there are these like alternatives to inpatient involuntary care,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, it's so good to know that resources like that are starting to exist, because it used to seem like it's like, okay, standard like talk therapy and medication management, and then like there was no like intermediate zone in between, just like normal like standard outpatient therapy and then like inpatient hospitalization. I mean, I guess there's IOP programs and stuff, but those are still pretty hardcore too in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
So I think, yeah, like it's good that more resources exist in 2025 than existed, even, 10, 15 years ago.
yeah,
And hopefully that does help people. Suicide is out of control in the United States. It's a public health crisis. And I really do think that new interventions and new forms of resources and care and self care need to be championed, because whatever we've been doing in this country historically has just not been working.
right, right. Yeah, and part of the believe it's called CSX, Consumer Survivor Ex Patient movement. There's a lot of cool history if you ever get a chance to read up on the history of the peer movement.
Yeah,
There's a lot of cool stuff that's gone on and more that I want to be more part of and part of the peer world, because some people may go through therapy their whole lives but never see a peer or never go to group or a group setting, and that group effort, of we're all in this together, we're all healing
yeah,
together, does I for me that's more effective. Talking to peers, I don't know if how much research has been done on the effectiveness of peer work, versus like traditional therapy and medication. But I think I have a feeling that it's significant enough for peer work to continue into the future.
100%. And that's actually one of the key points from the Bipolar Recorder mini documentary that we put out in, I think, May 2024. We called it the third element, like beyond talk therapy and medication. Like the third element would be finding community. And I think that that's like the real game changer for a lot of people, myself included.
Yeah, absolutely. Community is essential, and it can be hard when you've been othered and
Yeah.
feel isolated by what you've been through.
Mm,
That's why, I think the peer world has become, it feels like it's just opened up, and I'm still learning,
yeah.
all the different connections. There's some really amazing people that I've already started connecting with, just really ahead of the curve when it comes to
Yeah.
peer stuff. And like at McLean, they have a program called, I think it's called Well Space, and it's specifically for young adults from like to up to age like 35, I think, or 30. People can just drop in, and it's basically like art therapy and talking to each
Yeah.
other, and dealing with whatever they're. I haven't done it myself, but I it's something that I think is really cool, the fact that it exists.
Hmm.
And they have
Hmm.
these like young adult access centers around the state as well. I don't know how many other states to have that. They didn't have that when I was in high school, but they're like drop-in centers for teens and young adults to kind of. I think just the more I learn about all these resources, the more hope I have for change
Hmm.
for people who live with these conditions. Um, it can feel hard, right? Especially right now with funding, government cuts on some of these programs that do exist. Sadly, are being cut, and peers are not being supported, and there's a lot of issues that come with peer work as well. Um, but yeah, this work has empowered me. I've started writing my I'm graphic novel memoir about psychosis, and trying to express what I've been through the medium of a visual novel. Basically, I think it's a good medium for that, but it's really hard.
Yeah. Writing a traditional book is really hard. So I think, you've shown me a little bit of the stuff you're working on right now, and you're doing like the illustrations and all of that yourself too. So that's a whole other level of complexity. But I think it's a really cool and unique and personal way to share your story. So you have your graphic novel memoir that you're working on. Are you working on any other creative projects that you find are healing?
Well, with the theremin, whenever I bring out my theremin, you could say just playing it sometimes can be in of itself a kind of healing process. But I've also done things like theremin presentations.
Yeah.
Uh, I was working at a nursing home at some point and actually did a presentation on the theremin for Music Appreciation Day. They loved it. The old folks loved it.
Yeah.
Um, and I had like a little slideshow, and we went through the history. It was very cool. And I've also performed theremin at there's this event called Vibe Camp that I go to, and
Vibe camp?
yeah,
Okay.
I've done a presentation on the theremin, and or kind of not presentation, but a kind of event around theremins. There are multiple theremins at the last one. And so I organized that event. I was in a noise band at some point, so music in general is like part of my healing process. I've made music, I've made songs, but it's something that where the process itself of being creative is the healing project, you could say.
Yeah, totally. I can totally relate to that. And you have a Moog Etherwave, I believe, right?
Hmm.
That's a nice theremin. And maybe for I see it in the background for people who can't see. Lump has a Moog Etherwave theremin set up, which is really just a cool little instrument. Do you want to maybe describe how a theremin is played? Because I think a lot of people don't even know what we're talking about. But if you could maybe
Um,
just like describe how you control the instrument.
yeah, so you don't touch anything. except when you set it up, of course. You're setting it up, and there's some knobs, so you tune it. It's basically a box with some antenna, and
Yes.
um, when you turn it on, you have to have your hand over the volume antenna, otherwise it'll start screaming. And but then the other hand will be for pitch. So the closer your hand is to the antenna that's a vertical antenna, the higher it will go. But you can also reach the same notes in different directions. So it's completely, for me at least, learned for me by ear and intuition. There's no way
100%.
to be like, yes, this is the note, and in this specific space. It
Yeah.
will change depending on the location of the theremin, of your body type, of the waveform that you tune it to, and that makes it really hard.
Yeah, and they sound really trippy too. It's I'll have to try to pull like some audio clips of Theremins and put them into this recording and post production. But yeah, if you can imagine something that's like about the size of like a wooden shoebox with an antenna and then like some metal prongs on it and knobs. I like that you mentioned that it's a very intuitive instrument to use too. It's like a great little thing for like children to play around with too, because it requires like very little. I don't want to say little technical skill, but it's not like playing a fretted instrument like a guitar where there's all these strings and like these frets and you're like doing a bunch of stuff with like your fingers and your hands and all of that. So it's like, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's an accessible instrument that a lot of people just find is like really chill and meditative to play with. So yeah, super, super cool. So you were in a noise rock or a noise band. I don't think you specified rock or not. You did say that some of the voices you heard featured your favorite rock stars. What rock stars were you hearing in your head?
Mainly David Bowie,
Why did I know it was going to be David Bowie? Oh,
because
that's
he's in the literature. He's in the psych literature.
oh my goodness.
There, I'll
Really?
yes, I'll send you an article about how common it is for David Bowie to appear in people's delusions and hallucinations in psychosis. It's actually so common that Newsweek made an article about it.
It's fascinating.
I didn't know about this until later in life. I was like, oh, I guess I have a common delusion.
Oh my gosh. No, yeah, that's cool. I think I may have heard about that at some point in the past, but do you have
Basically,
a
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you have a favorite David Bowie album.
Oh God, that's hard to choose. That's hard. Well, right now it's Black Star, just because I think it's the most recent one I've listened to.
Yo, that is probably Black Star is probably his magnum opus, to be honest. And it's for people who don't know, it is the last album he created before he passed away in like 2016-ish, I think, roughly. But it is a really dark and somber, but like very, very well produced and nuanced album that is like a great like start to finish listen in my opinion.
I agree completely. I joke that he haunts me and possesses me and makes me play the theremin.
Yeah. That's cool though. Yeah, David Bowie. So you've got a British man up there from time to time.
Yeah, he visits. It's okay.
Can you talk maybe a little bit about the work that you're getting started with NAMI? You said you're
Sure.
doing the in our own voice or in your own voice. I can't remember exactly what it's called. In
In
our
our
voice,
own voice.
in
Yep.
our own voice. And so this is something that you kind of just recently got involved with. So I know you haven't done a ton with it yet, but like what kind of work are you looking at doing in the future with NAMI in our own voice?
So it's public speaking. kind of similar to what I'm already doing with my other work. We do, as far as I know, there there are different places that they show up. It can be inpatient as well as colleges, schools, um, and police. In fact, if you present to police, you they pay you even more,
Whoa.
which is saying something, I think.
Blood money. No, I'm just kidding.
But it's been um it's basically this presentation where you have a co-presenter. You have the story of who you are, what happened, you know, what helped, and then like what is the future for you. And it's it is they I think NAMI wants it to be a story of hope. Obviously that would, to bring hope to others, to show, yes, you can recover, this is possible. And I think that I agree with that notion of, like, yes, we should bring these stories of resilience to people, because they may not realize that they can get better
Yeah.
until they see someone else has gotten better.
Yeah, that's I think that you mentioned earlier one of these psychiatrists who you were working with early on was like, oh, like she'll never be able to go to college or whatever. And I just think that's such bullshit that that type of messaging is directed at, a vulnerable population of people. I think that mental illness is not inherently going to be the ends of your potential or be a inherent limitation on what you're capable of. I mean, to talk about a little bit about what I've done over the years, if I hadn't encountered this whole bipolar thing, I probably wouldn't have gone on to like write books and articles and all of that sort of stuff. And I just think it's terrible when people feel like they get hit with a diagnosis and they think that that's going to be the end of it for them. I know I felt that way when I was initially diagnosed and hospitalized and stuff when I was 22. I thought my life would never get back on track, but through a few different experiences. One of them was actually volunteering in my community, and then uh, eventually segueing from that into like a full time paid position, working in a human services related field and stuff. And so now, after 10 or 11 years of living with formally diagnosed bipolar, it's like I would never tell someone, oh, you're bipolar, you're schizophrenic, you're schizoaffective, so just stop trying. That's terrible.
Yeah, I'm lucky in a way. My parents never gave in to that. They pushed me. They may have pushed me a little too hard sometimes, but they knew I could succeed. I may have not I didn't complete college, but I did try. And
Yeah.
I was successful when I was in college. I did a lot of I was president of the meditation club. I was part of like honors programs. I got into Phi Theta Kappa, which is like an international honor society, and I was doing pretty well. I just things got rough, and now I love what I'm doing. It's very meaningful work.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's all you can do, really, is make meaning with what you've been dealt.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you can take a deeply personal experience and utilize it in a way that others resonate with and feel supported by too. Like, and that comes along with the territory of peer support work, like what you're doing. So yeah, it's deeply personal in nature, and the satisfaction and like intrinsic fulfillment you get when you see that by sharing about yourself and listening to what others have gone through, like it's this awesome mutually beneficial thing. And yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, yeah, and I hope that, in the future, that there will be more peer work opportunities, because I don't know, it feels really important. Um and it gives people who have been through these difficulties a chance to give back
Yeah,
and be paid for it, and to, because a lot of people have been through so much and have something to give out of that.
absolutely. Well, I wanted to ask you if you have anything you would like to share that we haven't already touched on, any questions you'd like to throw at me. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you wanted to bring up during this interview?
um Nothing immediately comes to mind other than I want to thank you again and commend you for creating.
Aw,
You've created a community, and that's amazing. Um, and I hope I get to actually spend more time learning more and maybe being part of that. I know it
yeah.
kind of like just appeared all of a sudden to everybody, but um,
Oh, that's
I'm the
yeah. She
community is so big.
sprang out one day, and no, you were in one of our peer support spaces on X the other night, and we have a lot of people who have been part of those online groups for, going on 4 years or even over 4 years now. Bipolar Recorder officially came out on October 7th, 2021, and the Spaces community followed shortly thereafter. But yeah, there's a lot of regulars in there, and we always enjoy hearing from new people and having new folks come by and share support and, talk about their lives and stuff, and just a constructive, non-judgmental, apolitical environment. Um, I I'll say that the type of advocacy work that I do and the messaging of Bipolar Recorder is distinct from what you would find with NAMI or DBSA or
Mm.
other groups. And you know my feelings about NAMI. Like for the audience, a couple weeks back, I sent Lump this long. It wasn't unsolicited. She asked me for my thoughts, and so I provided them. And I accidentally ended up writing like basically a short essay about my personal, concerns about some of the work Nami does. But I would also like, with that said, to just highlight, I think that the In Our Own Voice initiative, and I think also a lot of local NAMI chapters are actually very well intended and are doing cool stuff. I think that the issue that I have with NAMI, the, you know, people who have been following this show for a long time are somewhat familiar with already, has more to do with like their national uh, office in Arlington, Virginia, which is kind of a whole other thing. But no, I think honestly, as long as there's more voices getting out there and more people sharing about what they've gone through, destigmatizing discussions about serious mental illness, and just helping each other out, the more the merrier.
Yeah, for sure. And that's fair. I have my own reservations about NAMI and their work, and I've heard different things, but as for whatever opportunities there are, I want to know about them, and I want to be the judge, before I,
Yeah.
I turn away certain opportunities.
Well, in the future, as you become more involved with the In Our Own Voice presentations and stuff, it would be really cool if you would like to come back on the show and kind of like let us know what you've learned and what you've experienced with that. I'm always saying that I want to feature all perspectives on the show, not, of course, not just my own. And I welcome any sort of discourse, whether it be um, you know, critical discourse or just comparing notes and all that. So yeah, that could be really cool.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I would love to. Um,
Yeah,
and
no
also,
pressure.
yeah, just I think the peer world and peer workers, we can, I don't know, in an ideal world, we would all be working together anyway. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
I agree with that. Okay, so as we kind of wind down here, I wanted to ask if you would like to plug any social media, any projects that you're working on or have already released. Like, how can people find out more about you and the work you're doing? If you would like to maybe share like your X account name or handle or
Well,
whatever.
I go through X accounts very frequently, but I will link my Substack, which is very,
Oh, okay, yes.
yes, yes, my Substack is very easy to remember. I was able to snag the username Lump. So it
Wait,
is,
just a lump? Oh, wow, that's cool.
so it's lump.substack.com.
Cool. What kind of articles do you write on Substack?
I haven't been writing. I started using it up again, but it's mostly been an exercise in kind of present moment experience of what I'm dealing with in my internal world. A
Okay.
lot of like transformative experiences end up going onto my Substack page, but I intend to write more there because I've been finding that X has been difficult to write with. And my attention span just goes everywhere when I'm on X.
Yeah.
So I wanna hunker down and really take my Substack more seriously.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, Lump on Substack. Definitely check that out. That sounds awesome. And is that all you wanted to plug for now?
For now,
Okay,
yes.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I'm glad that we were able to line this up, and yeah, just really appreciate you and what you're doing. And I encourage you to continue your exploration into the world of peer advocacy and support. And you're definitely welcome back on the show in the future if you'd like to, keep us abreast of your new experiences and learning and all of that.
Thank you so much. It's been a
Awesome.
pleasure and an honor.
Awesome. Yes. Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this conversation with Lump. Lump is on Substack. You can find her simply by searching Lump. And if you want the direct link, it's lump.substack.com, which is also included in the show description. Remember, like we said during the interview today, peer support communities are a valuable resource for many individuals living with mental illness. In fact, there happens to be an amazing Bipolar Recorder online community available on the Twitter, now X, Spaces platform. Follow us there at Bipolar Recorder to join our regular peer support conversations. To learn more about Bipolar Recorder and to support this ongoing mental health initiative, visit bipolarrecorder.com. I'm still working on raising funds for the production of the Happy Valleys, a Bipolar Journey audiobook edition, so consider buying some official merch or making a donation on our website. I've been selling a lot of the deluxe poetry cards lately. People seem to really like those, and I still have about 40 left in stock, so check those out for sure. Again, that's on bipolarrecorder.com. My name is Hunter Keegan. I'll be back soon with some more podcast releases for you. In the meantime, follow Bipolar Recorder on social media. We're on Instagram and Twitter/X at Bipolar Recorder. There's a ton of great supplemental content on there. If you're not already following our social feeds, you're missing out on a lot of great stuff. So be sure to follow at Bipolar Recorder. My personal X account is at HHKeegan, where you can find my less serious, non-mental health related content. And if you'd like to reach out to me privately for any reason, my email address is hunterhkeegan@gmail.com. Finally, don't forget to rate and subscribe to this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever other streaming platform you use. Thanks again for listening to this, the 65th installment of the Bipolar Recorder podcast. Have a lovely day, evening, or night, wherever you are.
Bipolar Recorder is a listener-supported show. To help keep the show running, consider checking out our Patreon page or visiting bipolarrecorder.com.
Unless otherwise stated, the hosts and guests on Bipolar Recorder are not licensed mental health professionals. Bipolar Recorder is not a substitute for therapy or professional medical intervention. If you are having a mental health crisis, please contact your local emergency services.